Okay, perfect. Well, hello, everybody that may be watching this. My name is Sarah Martinez. I am currently a grad student getting my master's in jazz studies at University of New Orleans. This lovely lady here in my Zoom meeting is Tracy Burklund. She is a professor of music at Southwestern College. She has been my private voice teacher and now a good friend of mine. We are going to do a little interview discussion, have a casual conversation about female jazz singers. Maybe you'll learn a little something more or something that you wanted to know. And, just kind of just going to be a little conversation between us. So, Tracy, is there anything you want to say about yourself or kind of introduce your background?
Hi, thank you for having me to have a casual conversation about fabulous jazz vocalists. Let's see, a little background about myself. I was a student at Southwestern, where I now teach. And from Southwestern, I went all the way over to Miami, Florida, and got my bachelor's in, oh gosh, the title is so long. Studio music, bachelor's of music in studio music and jazz, and then vocals in parentheses. That was the emphasis. From there, I came back to the West Coast. I did a little bit of teaching here and there and ended up landing the position at Southwestern kind of unexpectedly. And at the same time had begun a master's program at San Diego State, and I got my master's in music there in jazz studies. And I've been at Southwestern since 2009. So, yeah, we're going on 11 years there, and it's been a lot of fun. Primarily, I've been the director of the jazz vocal ensemble. I also teach the voice classes, and I'm doing private lessons now at the school, and sometimes music history and things like that.
Oh,
A little bit of everything.
awesome. Well, you can hear that she does have a really wonderfully extensive background on music and singing. She was my private voice teacher in jazz for a long time, so I know she has a lot of really wonderful information to talk about. So, typically, in most jazz vocal settings, jazz vocal education, um, in the female realm at least, we learn about three pioneers of classic jazz singers, which is Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, and Ella Fitzgerald. Those are the
Hmm.
names that come up a lot. A lot of names that, that like, oh, when you want to encourage a jazz singer that's just starting out, you tell them, hey, listen to Ella, listen to Billie, listen to Sarah. So they're just traditionally revered jazz singers. And I'm kind of wanting to talk to Tracy about what she thinks about these women and how they've impacted her as a singer and her as an educator and how she uses those women in her teaching of jazz singing. So, Tracy, do you remember hearing any of these women for the first time, or not maybe the first time, but kind of your first memory of any of them in particular, and maybe something special about them that stuck out to you?
Oh, yeah. When I moved down to California from Washington State, I had never heard jazz before. And I think I was about 18. And some of my extended cousins took me in and said, "Hey, let's go out to this jazz jam." And I'm like, "What's that?" And at that particular jazz jam, it was like a little house jam. One of the cousins gave me a CD, which I still have. She lent it to me, and I still have it. Sorry, not sorry. And it's probably, it's my first love with jazz. And it was Louis and Ella, or no, I'm sorry, it was Basie and Ella. And it just, the whole CD, I mean, I could listen to it over and over and over again, and I could probably repeat it exactly. Like, I know every song on that album by heart. And I listened to it religiously. And that was my first experience with jazz, and it was with the great Ella Fitzgerald. Maybe if it had been with somebody else, I wouldn't have fallen so deeply in love, but it's such a fabulous album. And from there, I started to listen to other artists as I was in the jazz vocal ensemble at Southwestern, and the director at the time was giving me, feeding me, like, listen to this and that and all that. So I met Sarah Vaughan along that path, and I really related with Sarah Vaughan because we have a similar range. I love how she used her voice to explore her range, like going down into these really rich, deep notes, but then, singing way up high in the high soprano notes. I mean, it's just so impressive. Um, Vocal Olympics a little bit. And it's so expressive. And then Billie Holiday is such a unique character because her voice, the timbre of her voice, is so memorable. And the way that she sang her songs was just so emotionally charged, and you could hear her experience in her songs. She's just amazing.
Yes, all these women have had really, important songs and things that have resonated with people like you and I. And I personally have taken a lot of elements from their singing to my personal singing. Especially with Ella, her musicality, and that's something I feel like you do a lot in your personal style of singing that I've seen. Um, Having very interesting chord changes and very colorful scats. Is there things from these women that you actively try and use in your singing or maybe even in your teaching as an educator? Is there specific elements from these women that inspire you that you hope inspires your students or people that you work with?
Oh yeah. Well, for me personally, Sarah Vaughan, as I mentioned, the exploration of range, I find super fun. And I love all of her timbral qualities, how she's able to just change her voice throughout an entire song. She goes through so many colors. For Ella, Ella is scat. For me, it's scat, and the clarity of her diction, the lyric, the way that she's able to tell the story. She's so instrumental. Um, for Ella, she's definitely a vocalist, a musician that we reference a lot, or at least I do, in the teaching world, because she's probably, the all-time number one scat vocalist, I would say, female vocalist. She's the one that everybody thinks about when you're thinking about scat, at least, pioneers back in the day. And we recently did a project where we did an oral transcription of an Ella Fitzgerald tune. And I really love when we incorporate things like projects like that, because that's one of the best ways to learn the language of jazz, is to not only listen to it, but mimic it, ingrain it, internalize it, and then, you know, experience it in your own way of delivering that particular um, transcription, doing exactly what the artist did, and then evolving it into, for you personally, evolving it to your own style, your own interpretation. And so along those lines too, with Ella being so instrumental, listening to instrumentalists is extremely important too. And Ella worked with a lot of well-known instrumentalists, like Count Basie, Louis Armstrong, all those guys. So it's it's important to listen to instrumentalists. As far as Billie Holiday, I love the way, Billie Holiday has that unique timbre quality where it's raspy. And so for me, as far as using that, sometimes I'll play with my timbre, like with Sarah Vaughan, and I might add like a little bit of rasp in there, a little bit of grit, just to, I don't know, it gives it more of an emotional connection, I feel.
Yeah, totally understand. Like all these women together as a whole, I feel are really key to building modern jazz singers' range of musicality. Things that you've mentioned, Ella's scatability, her instrumentalism. As a singer, we don't want to be knowledgeless. It's important for us to learn the musicality behind it and have the music smarts, which, it's really great to have. And with Sarah Vaughan, her range technique is wild. And like she just has all these stylistic elements that, of course, are still musical because she was actually a jazz piano player as well, which I learned recently,
Yeah.
which was very interesting. So she has these very stylistic changes. And then Billie
Mm-hmm.
Holiday is interesting to me because when I think about her personally, I don't really think about her. I mean, she obviously has musicality. To me, I love listening to her songs. But it's not necessarily because I think her voice is particularly great. It's because I think that the way she says it overrides any other singing technical aspects that I may not be traditionally beautiful. She doesn't have
Yeah.
that clear. She has that rasp. She has that clear tone. Sometimes her diction is a little interesting, but it's with these ladies together. Like I know you've told me this in the past before that it's a conversation. It's jazz is a conversation, and it's interesting how these women can have three different types of conversations, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
really cool to see that taught in school. And um, do you feel that in the educational world that there's been one particularly that most people like cling to, or is there one that you just have used more? I guess you kind of did answer that a little bit with Ella, but like in teaching, like let's see how I can phrase this question. How do you think the knowledge of all of them together as a unit can help grow them as a jazz singer overall?
Well, as we've been discussing, we're talking about the three, I mean, they're each unique in their skill. And so by listening to the three of them and doing things like oral transcriptions or even written transcriptions and just really listening and then repeating it back and kind of trying out those techniques, you yourself are developing technique, you're developing your language of jazz, you're evolving your style, your personal style. Um, you're getting familiar with color in chords. You're playing with vocal timbres to help tell your story. So you're building your technique essentially. And it's not just the three of them, as we know. There's so many other artists, of course. I know we're focusing on the female vocalists, but instrumentalists too. Same thing. You're going and listening, internalizing, and then delivering it. Um, like Clifford Brown, Chet Baker, of course, Louis Armstrong, all those guys. So, and again, a lot of the three female vocalists worked with instrumentalists. So their language that you are listening to and internalizing is also the language of their peers.
Yeah, no, that's a great point to bring up as well. It's like we are focused on like the female jazz singers because that's who we are, but learning the language of jazz is not a specific thing. Like instrumentalists have a big role in how we speak as jazz people, as jazz musicians, and it's really great just to let people know it's really listening is just number one. Just feeling it inside, getting it ingrained and into your mind, and with just different feels and different sounds, and learning different things that you can do with note bending or phrasing or
Really just playing with your voice,
right.
playing with your voice to develop your style and help you tell these stories, whether it be a pre-existing lyric that you're using, or maybe you are a singer-songwriter and you've got your own stories to tell.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. We'll do. I have a couple more, I guess, not questions, but when do you have any songs that from these women? We'll just go back to them for a moment. That you recommend a jazz singer to listen to that you think, kind of in your personal opinion, maybe embodies this is what we've been talking about this person, and this song really, gives you a good idea of that. Do you have a song recommendation for any of these
Yeah.
that you
Oh my gosh, yes.
want anyone to listen to? Or even a
Billie
couple?
Holiday, number one, Strange Fruit. Number one. I mean, they all three of them have an extensive repertoire list. But if you're talking about embodies, Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday, it is just, and it's so poignant right now, with what's going on in society, what has been going on. It's so reflective and poignant. Yeah. So Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan. Gosh, there's so many. Some of my favorites from her. I mean, I love Sophisticated Lady, again, because of the range and the difficulty of that particular song for a vocalist. In that respect, I really recommend listening to and learning that particular song. In a Sentimental Mood is another one from Sarah Vaughan, kind of similar. Like it's got that range and difficulty to it. And then Ella Fitzgerald, it's so tough to pick
You said
one.
hundreds of songs, so I know it's different.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
not
I
necessarily.
know the one that a lot of people would say is a Tisket a Tasket because eh. Um for me personally, going back to that album I was talking about, the Count Basie and Ella Fitzgerald album, um, I want to say it's On the Sunny Side of the Street. I'm not sure if it's that album. I should know. But for me, I really love her rendition of Them Their Eyes, Honeysuckle Rose. There's some songs on there that, I mean, she just goes off on the scatting, and you're like, oh, what? So, like, the whole album is like, there's tons of scat in there, and it's just super fun and so colorful and fast. When you can scat fast, it's just fun. It's like a trumpet player trying to play all the really high notes. A vocalist trying to scat really fast. It's like, yeah. And her syllables that she does is like, she has every combination of syllable there is, and you're kind of like tongue tied by the end of it going.
Yeah,
It's just
her syllable
fun.
change is quick. She has a fast tongue. Like
Oh
she
my gosh, yeah.
really get down to it.
Yeah, she's I would say pretty much anything from her, right? And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
that's she's a hard one to pick one song one song, and I would just say I would revert to my particular favorites, which are going to come from that album that I am partial to.
Of course. Great recommendations. I know I love Ella's Blue Skies because it's just a classic song, but then her scatting is just unreal. Scat's
Hmm.
awesome. With Sarah Vaughan, I love her version of Misty. It's very
Oh yeah, yeah,
Misty by Sarah Vaughan. They've all done it. They've all crossed over and done the same
right.
songs, but certain songs more. Yeah, and with Billie Holiday, definitely Strange Fruit is just kind of her
Hmm.
signature. It's kind of it's something if you want to just have a good taste of who she is, like that's a great
That's it.
one to listen to.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Tracy, for your time and just getting to talk to you a little bit about all these jazz singers that are important in my life and I'm assumably yours in some point. There's, like she said, there's so many other singers to listen to. I know I personally listen to a little bit of Jane Monheit, like a new modern singers.
Yeah.
Any modern singers or anyone else that you just like to throw into the mix as a recommendation for anybody?
Oh my gosh. Um, you know, I I'm having a brain fart with names right now. Um, Esperanza Spalding. I really love her.
Oh yeah, she's great.
I actually am really attracted to instrumentalists that are vocalists. And I love it when they double. Like when they're playing a solo on their instrument and they're doubling it with their voice, like that to me is just like, give me more. I really love it.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we totally
So,
skipped over
yeah.
that you're an instrumentalist as well, a percussionist, and play a little of that type of thing. So maybe that's why you resonate so well with Sarah Vaughan.
Yeah, yeah, that would make
More an
sense because
instrumental vocalist.
yeah, my musical path, I did start out as an instrumentalist. First, it was drums, and then I got hit in the eye with a drumstick. And then we switched over to piano, I think. And it was like, okay. And then eventually found my way to the xylophone, which is just a little combination of both of them. So, yeah, xylophone vibes. I wish I had one. I'd be able to practice a little bit more. So it's just me and the piano these days.
That's fun, still getting stuff done. And Tracy, as she said earlier, that she is the director of the Jazz Vocal Ensemble. During this weird pandemic, we're obviously not able to meet in person or do anything like that, but I know you do have a lot of interesting things coming up for everybody, which I may or may not be involved in. But show coming up down here at Jazz Cafe, correct, Tracy?
Yeah, we're gonna do our usual. We do a semesterly jazz cafe, and our jazz cafe's coming up Friday, October 30th, and we're gonna have a fall autumn theme for that. I'm really looking forward to me personally seeing the performances from the students and also sharing all of the wonderful talent that's at Southwestern. And we're actually going to we've got some caroling that we're doing a little in person here. So hopefully that goes well. We've got our winter choral concert. We're working on a fun tune. Big band, hot chocolate. Keeping it fun while we're in this weird pandemic. Got to keep it lively, keep it fun, keep it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the students are really grateful for people like you really making the best of this situation and letting us get our creativity out somehow. Maybe all become video editors now, I guess, because we have to.
Right.
So thank you for the work that you do in the school. I know you're a busy lady with a family, a little toddler running around. So, being at home I know hasn't been perfect, like it isn't for everybody, but we just
Yeah.
I know people that are watching this probably know who you are, or probably know a little something about you. So, thank you for all that you've been doing, and thank you for this conversation you've had with me.
My
Just
pleasure.
a casual conversation, just kind of talk about music and hopefully teach someone something that they didn't know, or they just wanted to listen to us talk to each other. Like, that's cool too. So, well, I guess I'll wrap this up then. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Tracy, for all your information. Anything you want to plug really quick before we're done, or?
Yeah, if you want to check out what we're doing over at Southwestern, we have the SWC Performing Arts YouTube channel. So just go onto YouTube, SWC Performing Arts, if you want to check out what we're doing with virtual concerts. And the cool thing, I guess this, one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that since we're remote, anyone can be a part of this ensemble, the jazz vocal ensemble, as well as our other ensembles. And so check us out, swccd.edu, if you're interested in being part of a virtual jazz vocal ensemble for spring 2021.
Fun. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, and we'll talk
Thank
soon,
you.
and hopefully
Yeah.
you'll hear from us soon. All right, bye, everybody.
Yeah.